Part 3. What if I don't want a long-term relationship with my WW? What if I want what she had with AP? I keep hearing this argument everywhere that affairs are shallow and pretentious, and they never lead to anything memorable. That in the end my WW chose me and repented of her affair for 5 years. That the people in an affair just go back to their animalistic instincts and focus on stroking their egos and short-term pleasure over everything. And it is made out to be inferior to a supposed long-term relationship like marriage. Even she says the same, that her affair was selfish and pointless, that she doesn't miss any of it, and that her acts during the affair fills her with disgust now. But that doesn't stop me from wanting what my WW and AP had. Not the betraying or the cheating part of it, but how she threw away everything else, her marriage, love, integrity, for her affair with AP. How she could just go wild with him and wasn't afraid of trying out the dirtiest fantasies because she didn't have anything to lose. How much excitement she got from sneaking around. How much desired and powerful she felt to have 2 men dancing to her tunes. When I think about everything she did with him, I feel like my relationship with her is bland, boring, and tasteless in comparison. I want a relationship where I can throw everything else to be with her. I want a relationship where I can wild out with her without either of us caring about being left. I want to feel powerful, and I want that energy she experienced. Yes, affairs don't last long, and yes, she came back to me in the end. But the affair must have been such an exhilarating and empowering experience. I doubt she will ever find that same kind of feeling with me. I wish I could give her the same level of excitement and energy that she experienced in her affair. And I wish I could experience the same with her. But I doubt that will ever happen. She will just stay with me, claiming she loves me, wants to grow old with me, will do everything for me. But nothing we have will never measure up to the energy and excitement of her affair. I despise the act of cheating, and I would sooner throw myself into a pit of fire than have an affair. But I would be lying if I say I weren't jealous sometimes of people who have the capacity to indulge in them. P.S. Sorry about the frequent posts. I do well during the day but go into dark spiraling thoughts at night. Update. I hate how cynical and pessimistic I have become after WW's affair. Just to be clear, we have been divorced for the last 5 years after I discovered her cheating on me. We have only recently started to reconcile. But these days, I have begun looking at everything with a lens of cynicism and distrust. I hate that this is happening, and I want to stop, but there is no easy or quick way to just stop thinking about it. Just today I was having lunch with a junior colleague from work, and he couldn't stop talking about how amazing his new wife is and how lucky he is to have her. On the outside I smiled and said I was happy for him. But on the inside, I wanted to scream at him and warn him that he shouldn't become so emotionally involved with someone so early on. That people are cruel and there are some who actually enjoy imposing pain on you. He reminded me of myself 6 years ago. I couldn't help but wonder how this guy who talked about his wife with starry eyes would feel if tomorrow he receives videos of her having intercourse with another man. That his perfect and amazing wife was just putting up a front. I was watching an old Bollywood movie with her yesterday evening. If you have watched any Indian movies, you know they all showcase unconditional and idealistic love stories that lasts forever. I wanted to pull my hair out at that instant. I grew up watching these movies, and now I know ours will never be a story like that. I know life is not supposed to be a movie, but it still hurts knowing that she single-handedly shattered it with one move and I had no say in it. Both of us are attending online therapy sessions for a month now. I can't lie, I feel like maybe things are progressing too slow for me. I'm still full of anger. Sometimes I feel so frustrated I feel like I have one foot out the door and I just generally feel defeated and worthless. Or maybe I just had too high expectations. It's only been 1 month since I started it after all. She on the other hand is able to somehow juggle her time and mental energy even with everything that's going on with us. After she found out that my love language is words of affirmation, she came up with the idea of leaving little loving notes on post-it cards all over the place for me to find. And I said, why not, go ahead. It's a really sweet gesture and I really should have been grateful or at least not thought of it negatively since I gave her permission to do it. I can tell she also puts in a lot of effort on each note, and I keep all of them and read them later on because they're lovely. But sometimes, my head just drifts into these thoughts that maybe, just maybe everything she's doing for me now is a pity present. Why put so much effort in saving something you threw away back then so recklessly? Is this genuinely her expressing her love for me? Or is this just her guilt from the last 5 years finally getting an outlet to escape? I question her genuineness at every turn. This lack of trust is at the root of my pessimism and cynicism. This afternoon I shared with her how I've been feeling the last few days. Basically, I told her everything I was struggling with in my last post. We talked for 5 full hours, and she did most of the talking. She also shared a lot that she was too scared to share before. No new details of the affair, thankfully, but new details about what led to the affair and how she felt during the affair. It's a lot to unpack and I'm still processing most of it. But I hate that I can't take even the smallest of things she says as truth anymore. It's like my brain has conditioned itself to believe that every word that comes out of her mouth is either a lie or manipulation. And maybe that is her fault for betraying me, but it is a real obstacle if we are to reconcile someday. How will I even begin to process and understand her perspective if my brain automatically rejects everything she says as false in the first place? Just to be clear, I'm not going to blindly believe her. I will check with the information I already know, and I will call out BS when I see it. But the state that I'm in now, there's nothing she says that feels like truth even if there's no basis for me doubting it. I'm not even necessarily talking about things related to her affair. Honestly, she told me the other day that we've run out of sugar and asked if she can walk to the neighborhood grocery store to buy some. And I became immediately paranoid and distrustful, and went to check if we've actually run out of sugar or if she's just making excuses to get out of the house so she can meet someone. I hate being like this. It's always the same problem with me. Distrust. And I always have the same question. Will I ever be able to trust her? Is there someone who actually got over this and was able to trust again before their WW got tired of them? Update: I've noticed I'm actually in a better mood when I spend more time with WW. It's really odd considering how triggering everything about her is to me. We spend most of the week busy because both of us work demanding jobs and get time to spend in each other's company only during the evening. And most of the week I spend the nights awake in the backseat of my car or in the floor of my bedroom unable to sleep and spiraling in dark thoughts. Most of the posts I've made here were posted on weekdays during those lowest points when I'm lonely and want to write SHT down to cope. Even during the day, random triggers consume my headspace. On weekends, we don't have to work jobs, so we have made it a point to spend all day together. I go out on dates with her sometimes, though it's been a while since we went last. We mostly just stay home and laze around. This said, I was out half the day for some work but then spent the entire rest of the afternoon watching some dumb Netflix show with her, and then went on an evening walk with her. Surprisingly, it was a completely trigger-free day, even though she was right by my side. At night, for the first time in many weeks, I had a good night's sleep. On Sunday too, I had the same experience. We went out grocery shopping, and even though there were many instances where I could have gotten triggered, in the end, I was fine. She's also weirdly receptive to my triggers, and many times she perks up and holds my hand whenever she figures out I may be feeling uneasy. Like when an actor who got caught in a cheating scandal appeared on screen and she asked if she should skip that part. I dare say the last 2 days were actually not so bad. It's far better than how I felt the entire last week. It's odd considering how her entire self is supposed to be a trigger for me. I recently figured out that the reason I can't have sex with her is because her face itself is a trigger for me. Her body too, in fact. It's all because of those xtapes I saw. Seeing her face during sex brings back those thoughts. My therapist only suggested that this may be what's going on, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate. How does her presence have such a positive effect on me? I brace myself every time for a triggering and rough experience whenever I need to spend some time with her, but it's always turned out better than I expected. How is it that I get triggered when we're apart but don't when she's right in front of me? Shouldn't she be the source of all triggers? And what exactly changes during sex that I have an opposite experience? I definitely need to talk to my therapist about this, which I will on my next appointment. But what do you guys think? Did any of you go through something similar? BS or WW? Update: I made a list of bitter truths about my WW and her affair that I need to learn to live with. I need help, support, perspective, anything that keeps me from losing all hope. There's so much I'm being asked to forgive and forget. I had no idea this list would be so hard to digest. 1. Firstly, I will never know if she liked AP more than me, if she found him more attractive, if she actually preferred him over me. When she was in the affair, she made fun of things like my height and my skin color, and she let AP degrade and walk all over my dignity. Now she swears I'm perfect in every way, and that even if she had a choice, there's nothing she would change about me, and that everything she said was just to stoke AP's ego and make her feel better about her choices by demonizing me. But does she actually in some small way feel ashamed of my short height? Does she actually secretly desire taller men and she's only with me out of pity or out of guilt? Does she actually prefer light-skinned men? Or was she just lying to satisfy AP like she said? I know everyone will have different things to say, and I cannot open up her brain to see what's really inside. So, I have to learn to live with the fact that I'll never know the truth. And also, with the fact that there will always be taller and more attractive men than me, and to trust that she won't give in to her desires again. That's a big ask. 2. I will always, or at least for a very long time, feel inferior and like a second choice. A safer option that she only took because AP turned out to be in a hole. If AP was actually a half-decent person, even someone who did the bare minimum, she would have left me and married him. And she wouldn't have thought about me for a single second. And I need to live with that realization because there's nothing else I can do. 3. I will never be able to give her the same exhilarating and exciting experience that the affair gave her. Ours will always be a boring marriage and do boring, predictable things. I will always be someone she knows. She will never find that same energy she got from exploring a new person, that thrill of doing something forbidden behind the back of your husband. I can never give that to her. And I also have to trust that she won't seek out that same feeling from a different AP again. That she's not just with me as a side piece that she can use to fulfill her cheating fantasies. Again, there's no choice. I have to live with it or there's no reconciliation happening. 4. I may never be able to have sex with her without being triggered. We will never be naked together without the images of them having sex playing in my head. I may never enjoy sex with her or climax with her ever again. Not a given, but definitely a possibility. This also means that she might end up feeling undesired and unfulfilled in our sex life, which means she might again go out and find that desire elsewhere. I have to live with that uncertainty and that fear. 5. None of this may lead to anything. Even after 5 years of reconciliation, things may not work out, which means 5 more wasted years of my life. I don't know if I ever will be able to love anyone else the same way again, or even love anyone else full stop. But I do want a family. I want to have kids. I want to come back home and find someone waiting for me. To commit to something like reconciliation that has so many variables involved, so many things that could go wrong. So much of it is based on just the assumption that she won't cheat again. There is always the possibility that we work through it all, I find happiness again. We have kids, and then 5 years later I wake up to find a bunch of SX tapes of my wife again. It's frightening. I don't know how to live with that. I don't know how to live with any of that. Just to be clear, I am 100% committed to reconciliation. And I am also not mad at her today. In fact, we just came back from a dinner date. Just feeling really hopeless and frustrated today at this mountain of expectations that I'm just supposed to accept and live with. I don't even know if I'm capable of doing that. What do you guys do when it feels like it's too much to bear? When it feels like this reconciliation thing is asking too much out of you? I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. Update: I hurt my WW last night with something I said, and I really regret it. Last night we went on a dinner date together. While we were at the restaurant, they somehow messed up our order and the waitress kept coming back to our table and apologized for the delay and said our order will be served soon. While she was walking away, I just said she's really pretty without thinking anything. And she was like, who? The waitress. I said yes, and she smiled sadly and said yeah, she is pretty. To this point it was probably a normal conversation. But I also added next that I bet our bodies will look really nice and tangled together. This is word for word something AP said to her, and she enthusiastically agreed about it while they were in the affair. I had no reason to really say it other than spite. I don't know why I said it. I almost immediately regretted it. That line just randomly popped into my head. I wasn't even thinking about that beforehand. I'm not even interested in having sex with her at all. Looking back, I said it purely with the intention of hurting my WW and without thinking much about what the consequences will be. When I looked at her, she was shaking, and I could tell she was expending a lot of effort in trying not to cry. I immediately felt bad and said I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I went and sat on her side, but she kept her eyes downcast and said it's okay, don't worry about it. By the time the food arrived she was fine. I asked her again on the way home if she wants to talk about it, but again, she said she was fine. Even if she said it was okay, I of course still felt bad about it. When I saw this morning that she had dark circles and smudges under her eyes, I knew something was up even if she was trying to hide it. So, I asked her if she was okay, and she basically just broke down in front of me. She said that for a long time she's been feeling like she doesn't deserve to be standing next to me after all she did. She said she feels like she deserves to be thrown in the trash. She says that if I dumped her and brought another woman home, she would actually cheer for me because she knows I deserve much better. I knew she hated herself for what she did to me, but I'm only now starting to realize just how much self-hate she carries. We've also been trying to restore sexual intimacy for some time, but it's just not working. The mental images of their xtapes plague and contaminate my headspace so many times I can't even get aroused. Even when I do, I can't come. I have shared these feelings with her. She told me that through therapy she's been trying her best not to dwell on her self-hate. So, when she heard me say what I said last night, she started spiraling. She felt that she's turned my days into a hell, and I've still stuck with her. and now she can't even give me any sexual pleasure. She said she feels like she's only been taking from me, and she can't give anything back because she's ruined so much. She kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so useless. I'm sorry I keep failing you again and again." While I held her in my arms and let her cry, it was gut-wrenchingly sad. When she calmed down a bit, I told her that sex between two people shouldn't be a transaction. That you are doing me a favor and I return it to you by giving you sexual pleasure. I am with you because I love you and I see value in you and I enjoy spending time with you. You don't need to give anything back to me apart from honesty and continued efforts. And also, that I'm not doing her any favor by reconciling. I'm doing it for myself because I know she will make an amazing partner as long as she continues to work on herself and not cheat again. I also thanked her for her honesty and apologized again for what I said. I told her that I will do better in recognizing things that may trigger her and not say unnecessarily hurtful things. I think I have to remember that she puts on a brave face for my sake. Things do bother her and there are things that hurt her. I mean, of course it does. She is human. It's weird that I have to actually remind myself that. I never want to hurt her this way again. I want to do better and control this impulsive desire of saying hurtful things for no reason. Did any of you here struggle with this problem? How can I do better in this regard? Update. Last night, we slept in the same bed for the first time in 5 years. I have decided to make some changes in the way I approach reconciliation. I have realized, and a lot of Redditors have also suggested, that I am demonizing her unnecessarily in my head and not looking at the real her. I am isolating her and not even allowing her to get closer to me. I finally came to the conclusion that if we are going to reconcile and move forward, there's no point in continuing to isolate her anymore. For the last 1 month I have asked her to sleep in the guest bedroom and haven't let her in my room yet. She often sexted with her AP in bed while I was sleeping right next to her, so I was afraid that her next to me in bed would be a massive trigger, and I won't be able to sleep because of it. Last night, I told her that I need to be more mindful of her feelings and admitted that I have been needlessly villainizing her when she's actually been doing everything right since we got back together. So, I told her that I won't be sticking to the past anymore and won't be closing myself off just to avoid triggers. So as a first step, I asked her if she would like to sleep in my bedroom tonight. Happy to report that I slept well, or as well as I can with all the nightmares and whirlwinds that go on in my mind. I fell asleep for 5 hours and then woke up at 6 a.m. and then couldn't go back to sleep again because of random spiraling thoughts. She held my hand all night because, in her words, "I want you to feel my hands at all times so you can close your eyes knowing I'm not doing anything else." I don't know if that helped, but having her next to me is definitely reassuring. I think she slept well too, though I disturbed her sleep when I woke up randomly at 6 in the morning. I'll wait and see for the next few weeks, and if things go well and I am able to sleep without any triggers, I'm thinking of asking her to permanently move back into my room. I don't know if that will be a good idea, and I am still wary of unprecedented triggers, but as I have learnt by now, I won't really know until I try. Update. My WW keeps pushing for a hall pass that I don't want. It's all she's been talking about for the last 3 days. Ever since the incident with the waitress that I posted about a few days ago, she's been spiraling and making wrong assumptions and doesn't listen to what I say. We've been trying to reignite our sexual intimacy for the last few days. I think her main struggle right now stems from one fact, the fact that I haven't climaxed during sex with her even once, because of the mind movies which happen whenever I am in a sexually stimulating setting with her. This has made her feel inadequate, and she told me she feels like she's failing me again. She seems really distraught and hopeless when we talk about it. She says that she feels helpless because with other triggers she can do something to control them and help me somehow. If it's something she does that is triggering, she can just change her behavior. If it is a song or a place that is triggering, she can make steps to see that we avoid it as much as possible. But with this, she feels hopeless because her face and her body itself is a trigger and she cannot change her body even if she wants to. So, since this is something she cannot change, she just needs to accept that she cannot give me pleasure anymore. Hence, the push towards an open marriage on my end. Even when she hasn't moved in with me, she told me that she feels she doesn't deserve monogamy from me anymore after the things she did, but if I give it to her anyway, she will accept it as a gift. I think with her there is a deep insecurity and feeling of not being enough for me, and also 5 years worth of shame and guilt that comes out every time any insecurity of hers is triggered. I empathize with her suffering but also feel frustrated at how she doesn't listen to what I have to say at all. I reassured her that this is not permanent, and with therapy a lot of BS before me have gotten past mind movies. A lot of people also don't, and if that happens, we will just stop reconciliation. Didn't she tell me that even if we don't make it in the end, she will still be grateful to have tried? She tells me that I may feel like I don't want it now, but in future it is possible that I want to have physically pleasurable sex with someone, and if I feel like it, I can go have it and I don't even need to tell her. I just lost my cool at that. I yelled at her and asked her if she wanted me to have an affair, and if she wants me to stoop down to her level. She cried and I felt bad and apologized. She told me, "I'm sorry, I feel so worthless, it's like I'm in D-Day again." I feel like as long as she's stuck in this rut, we will be going in circles around the same conversation. She's been attending therapy and she told me she's been discussing her insecurities with her therapist. I hope with time the situation improves. Did any of you here go through anything like this? Is there something I can do to help her and stop her from spiraling? Update: I don't understand the affair mindset at all. Can someone help? So, you're telling me that my highly intelligent, confident, and compassionate WW1 started an affair with a manipulative piece of scum. 2. Because she wanted validation. 3. Apparently validation from her own husband was not enough. 4. And she was too scared to talk to me about her needs for some reason she hasn't been able to explain. 5. But then somehow, she had no inhibitions about asking for validation from some random guy she hooked up with 10 years ago. 6. And all this while simultaneously claiming to have never felt anything was missing in our marriage, and that it was so perfect, and she wishes she could have it back. 7. While also conveniently never realizing how precious her marriage was during the entire 1 year that she continued her affair for. 8. Because apparently the validation she got from him was like a drug. 9. Which obviously means that it was a feeling she was willing to throw everything else for, and this feeling was more important to her than whatever our marriage stood for. What's even more confusing is after I found out she 1. Was immediately clear that she wants to be with me despite just 2 days ago planning to go visit him in his home. 2. Blocked him and never contacted him again. 3. Dragged him to court and got him imprisoned for good measure. 4. Even went as far as to say she was glad I found out and almost made it sound as if I saved her from what she was doing. 5. When this was the same person she was traveling across states to meet and did all manner of favors for. 6. But then somehow she never yearned for that feeling again, never reached out to him again. 7. Even 5 years later she still wants to reconcile and still says he doesn't even compare to me at all. 8. While her texts with him seem to indicate a completely opposite picture where she makes fun of me and said our marriage was not working out. Sure, she says now those were all lies. She told him to stroke his ego and keep him interested in her. But there is again a contradiction here. If he was so important to her that she would trample all over my dignity for this feeling of validation that he gave her, then how come she was able to overcome this need for validation in seemingly one snap of a finger when I found out? How come she never thought of him or wanted to feel that validation drug from him again? I am now at a point where I am starting to trust her words. She has proven reliable and trustworthy enough in the last few weeks. But the things she's told me are so difficult to wrap my head around. They make zero sense to me. Maybe this is because I have never had an affair of my own. I guess I'll never know. The biggest one that I struggle with is how did you never realize the importance of our marriage for 1 year? 1 year is too long of a time. Did you never sit down and think about it? Did that thought never occur to you when you came home and saw my face, even once in 12 months? And how can I forget her feeling intimidated at having to discuss her needs with me but somehow didn't feel intimidated to step out of marriage? Isn't that a more daring thing to do? Or am I missing something? I am not questioning her genuineness anymore. I trust her when she says all this. At this point I just want to understand. How are so many of these contradictions and unlikely chain of events possible? I would love to hear some experiences from other wayward on this. Edit. I suffered a minor hand injury a couple days ago which made it uncomfortable to type for the last 2 weeks. So, I haven't made new posts in this time, but I have